This is a beef jerky flavor that we're making from our suggestions in the comments. I'm Doug with jerky.com, and today in our test kitchen, you and I are gonna make this honey ginger beef jerky recipe. Let's get right in on this honey ginger. So we're gonna start with 2 pounds of eye of round. Now I keep pre-sliced, pre-measured bags of exactly 2 pounds of eye of round in my freezer. That way when I make these test batches, I can do it really quickly at the drop of a hat. All I gotta do is make sure it's thawed out ahead of time. Now to the meat, we're gonna add good old-fashioned thick honey. Now I'm gonna use sweet soy sauce, ginger powder, garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, and salt. Now, if you didn't get all those ingredients, don't worry about it. We put a full list of them down in the description. Plus, we have all this information on our blog at jerky.com. There's a link below. You'll find all the ingredients, all the measurements, the directions, the steps, everything you need to make this honey ginger beef jerky. Now all you gotta do is get your hands dirty. First thing I do is make sure all that meat doesn't stick together. When I have everything pre-packaged in there, they tend to stick together. So I wanna make sure I pull them all apart before we start mixing it. Otherwise, some pieces may stay stuck together and not get properly mixed up. Once you've got all the pieces pulled apart, now you just wanna mix this stuff thoroughly. Now you're gonna get messy doing it, but you're kinda looking for 2 things here. One, you're making sure all your dry ingredients get fully dissolved into the liquids. And then 2, you wanna make sure all of that marinade gets over every single piece of this meat. This is how you ensure even, consistent flavor coverage over all the meat. So just keep mixing it and just mix that stuff thoroughly. Do not half-ass this step. Once you got it all properly mixed up, then put a lid on it, seal it up tight, and throw it in the fridge. All right, this has been exactly 41 hours since I started. All right, we're gonna get this racked up to go in our dehydrator. Now, if you don't have a dehydrator, that's no problem. You can even do this in your oven. Racking it up here isn't exactly rocket science either. There's just a couple things you wanna make sure that you pay attention to when you rack it. The first thing is make sure the pieces lay flat. You don't want anything folded under. You want the whole piece of meat laying nice and flat. That'll really help make sure that you don't get any weird pieces that are half dried. The other thing you want to do, just make sure all the pieces are laid out. They're not touching anything. They're not touching another piece. You want proper airflow all the way around your pieces of meat, not just on the top and the bottom, but also all around the edges. This will ensure a proper dry so that you have a consistent product throughout your whole batch. The last piece of advice I'd give you is just know the capacity of your machine. The machine I'm using here is a 6-tray dehydrator. I know at full capacity, I could hold 4, maybe 5 pounds of meat, depending how it's sliced. So 6 trays is plenty for what we're doing here. So I don't have to worry too much about tetrasizing it and just maximizing how many pieces are on each tray. I've got plenty of room. Now all we gotta do, let's start this drying process. I'm gonna set the time and temperature for my desired texture. I know 140 degrees on this machine is good, and I'm gonna start checking it at about 3.5 hours. Anytime we do honey ends up kind of coating it and make it a little more difficult to pull out all that moisture. It takes a little longer in the cook process on a honey-based recipe than a dry recipe. So I start watching this thing about 3 hours in, 3.5 hours in. This one ran for almost 5 hours all in the dehydrator, and then I let it set at room temperature. It sat for about 2 hours, so it feels really good. It's got good tear, fair amount of surface level moisture and stickiness as you would expect with honey. Feels good, tears good. I'm gonna call honey ginger done. Now I usually love sweet beef jerky flavor profiles, so I'm really interested to see how the ginger works with this one. Let's get right in. The texture's on point. It has a great tear, a great chew. I wouldn't change a thing on the texture. It definitely has a lot of surface level stickiness. I mean, that's kind of what you'd expect with honey. And you absolutely get the sweetness from the honey. The ginger's probably a little on the subtle side. If the ginger's too prominent, it's very easily overwhelming. I think it could stand to be just a little more prominent though. It's a little too subtle. But it's overall a very good sweet jerky profile. I like it. If you like sweet jerky flavor profiles, you should definitely put this on your list of flavors to make. I think it has a lot of potential to go a couple different ways. And I really think you could take this base and make something that's perfect for you. If you have any ideas for some interesting jerky flavors, leave them down in the comments. Who knows? I may make your flavor in one of our next videos. And if you enjoyed this video and got any sort of value whatsoever, consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. We drop new beef jerky recipes all of the time, and I don't want you to miss a single one, because the next video we make may be the perfect jerky for you. Thanks for making this honey ginger beef jerky recipe with me, and I'll see you next time in the jerky.com test kitchen.